Hello. So, good afternoon and welcome to the Enoch Pratt Free Library. I am the author event coordinator, Sophia Nahlawi. Thank you for joining us this Saturday for a sold-out edition of Pratt Writers Live, featuring R.L. Stine. I want to welcome everyone here at the Central Library today and all of you watching the live stream from home. We've got a great lineup of programs this fall. We've got events at all Pratt locations celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, Maryland STEM Festival, and some spooky events to celebrate Halloween. Next month, Read Reef returns to the Pratt. Children 5th grade and younger can pick up a special bookmark at any Pratt location, read 5 aquatic-themed books, and earn 4 free tickets to the National Aquarium, starting October 1st. On October 7th, we'll welcome award-winning author Jason Reynolds for his very first picture book, There Was a Party for Langston. And so now, for today's big event. R.L. Stine is one of the best-selling authors in history who has been scaring kids for decades. He created the Goosebumps series, which has sold 400 million copies worldwide. And his books have been translated to 35 languages. The beloved series started in 1992 and has been both a television show and had 2 film adaptations. And now, a brand new Goosebumps series is out, House of Shivers, Scariest Book Ever. And it is with that, and my pleasure, to welcome R.L. Stine to the stage.
Thank you. Whoa. Thank you. Such a nice crowd. This is a real ugly mob. I'm amazed. Thank you all for coming. Whenever I talk to people, I always like to start out by reading a poem by another author. This is a poem called Haunted by Shel Silverstein. And I like to read this poem because it's scary and funny at the same time, which is what I like to do with my books. Haunted. I dare you all to go into the haunted house on Howland Hill, where squiggly things with yellow eyes peek past the wormy windowsill. We'll creep into the moonlit yard, where weeds reach out like fingers, and through the rotted old front door a-squeaking on its hinges, down the dark and whispering hall, past the musty study, up the winding staircase, don't step on the step that's bloody, through the secret panel to the bedroom, where we'll slide into the ragged, cobweb, dusty bed 10 people must have died in. And the bats will screech, and the spirits will scream, and the thunder will crash like a horrible dream, and we'll sing with the zombies and dance with the dead, and howl at the ghost with the axe in his head. And come to think of it, what do you say we go get some ice cream instead? That's Haunted by Shel Silverstein. Well, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank the library for inviting me, also for making sure that everybody got a book. It's a really wonderful thing. What a nice thing. And this is the new series of Goosebumps that's coming out. This book is coming out in a week or so. So you are the first people in America to see it. It's not even out yet. It's House of Shivers. I'm excited to be doing a new series because there aren't enough Goosebumps books, are there? I mean, somehow, I don't know. When we started doing Goosebumps in 1992, I said, let's do 2 or 3 of them. Yeah, it's 30 years later. Here I am. I don't know. But I'm very excited to do this, and I wanted to do a really good book for the first one in the new series. And so I came up with the title, Scariest Book Ever. But what do you think would be in the scariest book ever? I started thinking about it. I mean, what would you put in the scariest book? Would you do like monsters attacking, all kinds of monsters? Why are you pointing at her? You'd put her in it? Yes. Oh, we're off to a bad start. Would you do a book about maybe you changing into a monster? Or would you do something else entirely? Well, I'm not going to give away the ending of the book, but I had this idea that maybe the scariest book of all would be a book that's blank. And you wouldn't know what evil was inside it because you couldn't even read it. For what it's worth. How many of you have ever seen a ghost? No, I mean a real ghost, not a ghost on television, a real ghost. I don't know if I saw one or not. I'm going to tell you a true story that happened to my brother Bill and me when we were kids back in Ohio. And you can decide if we saw a ghost or not. My family was very poor, and we lived in a tiny house, and we had a small backyard, and beyond the backyard there were woods. And in the middle of the woods, mysteriously, there was a tall pile, a mound of smooth white stones, like a mountain of stones in the middle of the woods. And nobody knew how they got there. But all the kids in the neighborhood liked to climb the stones, and we all would hang out there and get together at the mound, but only in the daytime. We never went there at night because we were all convinced that someone was buried under the pile of stones. So we only went there in the day. One day, Bill and I were hanging out on the pile of stones, and my mother came into the woods and she said, "You have to come home. Your dad and I are leaving, and a new babysitter is coming to stay with you. She'll be here really soon. Her name is Mrs. Perkins. We have pizza on the table for you, so come home and have pizza, and Mrs. Perkins will be here right away." A brand new babysitter. So Bill and I left the woods. We went home. We went in the kitchen. We sat down, and we started having our pizza, and the doorbell rang. And I went to answer it, and this woman was standing at the door, and she was a very pale woman and dressed all in gray. And I said, "Oh, Mrs. Perkins, hi, I'm Bob, and that's Bill. Come on in." And she came in, and I said, "Would you like some pizza?" She said, "Oh, no pizza." And she was like looking around the room, and she said, It's so cold. I'm so cold. It's so cold." And it was a pretty warm summer day. The window was open. There was a nice soft breeze coming into the kitchen. And she said, I'm very cold. And she was like wandering around the house. I said, "Maybe some pizza, some dinner would help warm you up." She said, "I don't know. I'm so cold." And then I remembered that my grandmother had sent a sweater. It was a blue wool sweater, like a cardigan sweater that was way too big for me. And I said, "Mrs. Parker, I'll get you a sweater. I'll help warm you up." And I went to my room and I got my grandmother's blue sweater and I handed it to her, and she wrapped the sweater around her. And she said, "I'm still cold. I'm so cold." And then she picked up, Bill and I wanted to eat our pizza. We didn't want to hear from this. And she picked up a candle and brought it to the table and said, "This will warm. Light the candle. Bob, light the candle. Light it." I said, "Well, what?" She said, "Light my candle. Light my candle." And I found some matches. I went in the drawer. I found some matches, and I lit the candle. And the smoke from the candle came up into my face. It sort of flickered up. And I closed my eyes, and the phone rang. And I turned around. In those days, we didn't all have phones. We had one phone that was on the wall behind me. And I turned around and I answered the phone. I said, hello. And this woman said, hello, is this Bob? This is Mrs. Perkins. I'm so sorry I'm late. Got hung up here, but I'll be there in 10 minutes. I said, what? Wait a minute. And I turned around and the woman with the candle was gone, disappeared. She was gone. And 10 minutes later, Mrs. Perkins showed up and stayed with us that night. And Bill and I didn't know what to think. And the next day, Bill and I went out to, it was Saturday, we went out to the mound of stones in the woods, and we were about to climb up and meet some of the other kids there. And I looked up at the top of the mound of stones. I said, wait a minute. And I climbed up to the top, and there was my grandmother's blue sweater spread out on the top of the mound. That's my true ghost story. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you think I made up part of that true story? Really? Did you think maybe I made up a lot of that true story? It's kind of what I do, right? Here's a short story from another book. I'm happy to talk about the new Goosebumps series today, and glad you all got copies. I have a lot of books coming out this fall, and I have a short story book called Stine Tinglers 2. It's Stine Tinglers is a good title, right? Anyway, it's 10 short stories, 10 new short stories, and I thought maybe you'd like to hear one of them today. It's called Our Little Monsters. Okay? Ow, don't bite. I shoved my brother Sean away with both hands, but the little monster dove for me again, snapping his little teeth and giggling. I grabbed him by the shoulders and held him away. I'm warning you, I said, I'll bite back. That made him and Chloe howl with laughter. This is what happens whenever Mom and Dad go out and leave me in charge of the twins. They're wild and ferocious and crazy, and they like to gang up on me. They're 4 and small for their age, and I'm 12 and the tallest girl in my 6th grade class. But trust me, when it comes to Sean and Chloe, size doesn't matter. With a cry of attack, Sean grabbed me around the neck and pulled my head onto the couch. Hey, don't take my head off, I cried. They both thought that was a riot. I grabbed Sean around the waist and lifted the little guy into the air. He kicked and squirmed. Put me down, Becca. Chloe sank her teeth in my leg and I nearly dropped Sean. They're both terrible biters. When I tell Mom what they do to me, she just says, deal with it. I lowered Sean to the floor and picked up Chloe. No more biting. I'll have to put you on a leash. Can we stay up late and wrestle some more? Sean asked. Before I'd answer, my phone rang. Chloe tried to grab it, but I swiped it away from her. It was my friend Izzy. Her real name is Isabella, but even her parents call her Izzy. What's up? Izzy asked. I can't talk, I said. I'm watching the twins. You're going to medal, she replied, for bravery. They're not that bad, I said. Oh, really? Izzy knows how berserk the twins can be. I don't know how you babysit them. I think all kids should be locked in a closet until they're at least 10. You're sick, I said. Then I let out a cry. Oh no, gotta go. I jumped off the couch and went racing to the kitchen. Too late, Sean and Chloe had found the big bowl of chocolate cake batter Mom prepared this morning, and they were already digging their hands into the bowl and heaving gobs of chocolate at each other. Stop it, I cried. A wet gob of cake batter smacked my forehead. The batter oozed down my nose and cheeks. That caused a burst of chipmunk laughter, and another blob of batter came flying at me. Hey, stop, no more. All three of us were laughing now and having the best chocolate cake battle ever. Go with the flow, that's how I deal with the twins, and we always have the best time together. By the time Mom and Dad got home, the twins were sound asleep in their beds. I'd cleaned up all the globs and chunks of cake batter, made it all into a cake, and I had the cake baking in the oven. Dad took a long sip from his water bottle. How are Sean and Chloe, he asked. They were angels, I said. Dad spit his water into the air. He and Mom burst out laughing. They know what the twins are really like. If you can handle those two, Mom said, you can handle anyone, Becca. You're a terrific babysitter. And that's when I got the idea to be a babysitter. I suddenly felt very excited by the idea. What could go wrong? So Becca gets a job. She gets a job babysitting two kids for a family that's just moved into the neighborhood. It's a brand new family, and she doesn't know anything about them, but she shows up for work. A couple days later, I walked up to the front door, swung open before I could knock. The woman smiled at me. Her pale face was gray in the dim light. She wore a loose black sweater over a long black skirt. She held the door open. Right on time, she said, thank you for coming. I heard footsteps. The man appeared from a back room. He was also dressed in black. He had a black baseball cap pulled low on his forehead. Hello, Becca, he said. Our little monsters are waiting for you in the playroom. Awesome, I said. I think we're going to have fun. They didn't reply to that. When is their bedtime, I asked. They both shrugged. Whenever, the man said. You'll know when it's time to put them down, the woman said. They started to the front door. Do you want to leave me a phone number so I can reach you if I have to, I asked. We don't have our phones yet, the woman said. No problem. When will you be back, I asked. They exchanged glances. It's a full moon tonight, the man said, so we'll be out till after midnight. Huh? What does that mean? The door closed behind them before I could ask. I found the two kids down on the floor in the middle of the next room. Garg and Gorm. They were dressed alike in gray t-shirts and shorts. They were on their knees, each holding a blue helium balloon on a string. Hey guys, what's up? They stared back at me and didn't reply. Remember me? I'm Becca, I said. Garg lowered his eyes to the floor. Gorm continued to stare at me. We know, she said. Tell me, guys, have you had dinner? Not yet. Not yet, I repeated. Well, what are you going to have for dinner? You, Garg said. They both laughed. No, really, I said. Really, Garg replied, and they both laughed again. I pointed to their balloons. Are you playing a game with those? Gorm swept back her straight black hair. No, we're not playing a game. We're just hitting each other with them, Garg said. He swung the string and bounced the balloon off Gorm's head. She swung back and bumped her balloon over Garg's face. That isn't much fun, I said. Do you know how to play volleyball with a balloon? We could bat it back and forth. We don't want to, Garg said. They both cried out as the string slipped from Garg's hand. The balloon floated up. He grabbed for the string and missed. The three of us watched the balloon hit the ceiling high above us. Garg made a pouty face and beat his fists against the floor. Oh, wow, too bad, I said. I gazed up at the balloon bouncing lightly against the ceiling. Do you have a ladder? Maybe I could climb up and get it. We don't need a ladder, Garg said. He jumped to his feet, walked to the wall, then he did a backflip until his shoes were flat against the wall, and he walked up the side of the wall. I let out a startled cry. How did you do that? Come down, Garg. You'll fall on your head. Gorm laughed. She flipped herself sideways and walked up the wall. She joined her brother on the ceiling. He grabbed his balloon. Then they both lowered themselves and hung by their legs upside down from the high rafter. Come down, I shrieked. Come down now. Come up and make us, Gorm shouted. I can't climb walls. How did you do that? Come down, let's play another game. Let's play something more fun. They whispered to each other. Then they both swung off the rafter and walked down the wall. They joined me in the middle of the floor. We know a good game, Garth said. Gorm nodded. It's called Bite Bite. Never heard of it, I said. How do you play it? I told you we didn't have dinner, Garg said. So Bite Bite is a good game to play, his sister added. Huh? It's easy to play, Garg said. We just bite you. You're joking, right? I pushed him away. You kids are weird. Yes, we're weird, Gorm said. Then I uttered a cry as the two of them started to change. Their eyes turned red and bulged until they poked out like ping pong balls. Their noses stretched into long snouts. Thick brown fur sprouted over their faces, and curled yellow fangs dropped down from their open mouths. Their chests heaved in and out, and they started to make animal grunts. No, I screamed, no, you really are monsters. They both snapped their teeth at me. I tried to back away, but I was trapped. Stop. When your parents get home, I'm going to tell them you didn't behave. Both little monsters laughed. What's so funny? They're not coming home, Garg said. They're never coming back. Huh? They're not our parents, Gorm said. They couldn't wait to escape. They brought you here so they could get away. No way, I gasped. They told you we were little monsters, but you didn't listen, Gorm growled. Now we're very hungry, Garg said. Sorry, but we have to play serious Bite Bite. Grunting and snapping their teeth, they moved in on me. I jerked my arm away just as Garg leaped up to bite me. I'm warning you, I bite back. They both laughed, ugly, deep laughs. Garg jumped again and nipped my elbow. Ouch, ouch, that's it for you two, I shouted. I let out a roar and swept a hand back over my head. I felt my jaws begin to slide forward. It took only a second for my alligator-long snout to stretch. I tested my 4 rows of jagged teeth. I roared again as curled claws poked from my growing hands, and the fur sprouted over my face, my arms, my legs. Garg and Gorm uttered startled cries. They tried to back away, but I was too fast. With an animal bleat of triumph, I clamped my alligator jaws over both of them, caught them both at once, and bit down hard. At home, I introduced Gorm and Garg to our little monsters, Chloe and Sean. The 4 of them leaped on one another, growling and nipping, rolling around and wrestling like little monsters love to do. Mom picked up the new arrivals in her giant paws and petted them tenderly. She rolled her 3 eyes. 2 more mouths to feed, she said. That's a lot of raw meat tonight. Then Mom turned to me. Becca, do me a favor. Don't take any more babysitting jobs. And that's our little monster. Thank you. Thanks a lot. People always ask me, what was the scariest moment of my life? People always ask, what scares you the most? What was the scariest? I'm telling you, the scariest moment of my life, this is a real, not a made-up story. I live in New York City, and I took my son, Matt, who was a tiny little guy, tiny, 3 or 4, to the automobile show one spring at the convention center. There were, thousands of people and hundreds of cars, and I lost him. That's my scariest moment. I turned around, I couldn't, feel him. I still can feel that feeling of panic, he was gone. And the whole thing maybe lasted 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, but that was the scariest moment of my life. And then I spotted him. He was standing over by a car, and I went running over to him, and I said, Matt, are you okay? And he said, where were you, Dad? I was about to call the manager. See, he's a New York kid. Why did I have to worry about him? Right. I will tell you what you'll do. I'll tell you, actually, I'm going to read some letters. A few weeks ago on Instagram, I'm reading comments on Instagram, and this guy wrote, R.L. Stine is a great author, but he's not a great writer. What? Wait a minute. What? I'm trying to think, what does that mean, right? One of the best parts about being me is the amazing mail that I get. And I'm going to read you some real letters, mostly from kids. And this is just the best part of it. And these are all real letters, okay? Dear R.L. Stine, I love your books. You're like the scariest man on earth. I want to know everything about you. Do you have hair? Love, Grace. Why, right? Dear R.L. Stine, I'm 10 years old and in 5th grade. I'm writing to you because our teacher told us we had to. I get a lot of mail like that. Dear R.L. Stine, I know your friends and family are proud of you, no matter what anyone says. These are all real. Dear R.L. Stine, I don't know if you remember me or not, but when you came to my school, I'm the one who stepped on your foot. I do remember that kid. Dear R.L. Stine, you are my 2nd favorite author. That was the whole letter. That was it. Talk about keeping you in suspense, right? Dear R.L. Stine, I like your older books. You should write a newer book about an older book, only newer. Dear R.L. Stine, I'm not that smart, but I like your books. These are all real letters. Dear R.L. Stine, I'm a big fan of your Fear Street books. I've read 21 of them. I have just one question for you. Why do they end without making sense? Dear R.L. Stine, I didn't like the ending to Horrorland number 8. Do you have an alternate ending you can send me? That's good, right? Dear R.L. Stine, I'm your biggest fan. I read your book so much I need my parents to escort me to the bathroom. I don't really get that one. I don't know. I don't really understand that one. Dear R.L. Stine, I had almost every book by you. I kept them forever because I hoped my daughter would read them. Sadly, she said she didn't want them, so I sold them off. Thanks for sharing, right? Can you believe that? No, you've probably heard me tell my all-time favorite letter. In all the years, this is my all-time favorite letter from a boy. Dear R.L. Stine, I've read 40 of your books, and I think they're really boring. Here's another true story from when I was a kid in Ohio, okay? Halloween's coming up, and I'll tell you about this Halloween that happened to Bill and me. I think I was 11 maybe, and Bill was 9. And it was a very exciting Halloween because it was the first year we were allowed to go out trick-or-treating without our parents, just us. And we both dressed up as ghosts. We put sheets over our heads with the eyes cut out, and we got big shopping bags to carry all the candy that we were going to trick or treat. And I got a can, you know that silly string? Do you know that stuff? A string comes out, and I tucked a can of silly string under my costume just in case we had to string somebody. And Bill and I set out. It was a cold October night. The ground was all crunchy hard from the frost. We could see our breath in front of us. And we always started trick-or-treating at Mrs. Dawson's house. She lived right across the street from us. And that was just our tradition to start there. But tonight, her house was completely dark. I said, Bill, I guess she isn't home. We'll have to go on without her. So Bill and I went trick-or-treating up the street. And we went up 3 or 4 blocks, and we came back 3 or 4 blocks. And we lived in a neighborhood of little tiny houses, so no long driveways. We didn't have to walk much. And when we came back, our shopping bags were just filled with candy, and we were very happy. And I looked across the street, and there was a light on in Mrs. Dawes' front window. I said, oh, I guess she's home. Let's go over there, Bill. So we crossed the street and started up her driveway, and it wasn't a light in the window. It was a big jack-o'-lantern in her front window, and it was bright golden yellow and a big grin on its face, big yellow jack-o'-lantern. And we walked up onto her front porch, and I knocked on the door and waited. She didn't come. I knocked again. She didn't come to the door. I rang the doorbell. We waited. And Bill said, she's in there, Bob, string her. So I got out the can of silly string, and I raised it to the door, and I stopped. And I looked because the jack-o'-lantern in the front window had changed. It wasn't yellow anymore. It was this bright, fiery red, and it had an angry scowl on its face. I thought, oh, I dropped the can of silly string. Bill and I went running down the driveway. I thought, what's going on? We were halfway down the driveway when the front door swung open, and Mrs. Dawson stepped out, and she was wearing this long gray nightgown. I remember it billowing in the wind, and she said, why did you wake me? Why did you wake me? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Dawson. We didn't know you were asleep. I'm really sorry. But can I ask you one question? How did you do that with your jack-o'-lantern? How did you change your jack-o'-lantern like that? And she said, jack-o'-lantern? I don't have a jack-o'-lantern. And I looked in her front window. It was completely dark. So Bill and I, we didn't know what to think. We ran home. We ran up to our room. We dumped out all the candy. We were dividing it all up, passing the candy around. And the next morning, we didn't say another word about it. But the next morning, I woke up and, I said, I really should go apologize to Mrs. Dawson. I should apologize for waking her up. So I got dressed for school, I had breakfast, and I went across the street to apologize to her. And there was a big truck in her driveway, and these workers were moving furniture in and out, moving furniture from the house. I thought, what? I went up to one of the workers, and I said, what's going on? And he said, I guess you're getting new neighbors, kid. I said, why? What do you mean? He said, oh, I'm sorry. Didn't you hear? Mrs. Dawson died 2 weeks ago. That's my other true ghost story. Thank you. You didn't believe that, did you? Come on. There are always kids who believe it. I love making up true stories. Now, here are questions from you. Got a bunch of questions. that you wrote down, and I'll see how many of them. I don't know how we're doing for time, but we'll try to answer some questions. I don't know where anyone is. I just started a creative writing program in middle school. How do you start generating ideas and get started with a new book? Well, I'll tell you my secret. People always, that's my most asked question. Every author, I think, where do you get your ideas? Where do you get your ideas? And it's a pretty impossible question to answer. But also, I think I've done every idea. I don't think there are any stories left, right? So I honestly never try to think of ideas from my new books. I think titles. I just try to think of a good title. And the title will lead me to the idea. Like this book that you all got today, Scariest Book Ever. I thought of the title first. I didn't have any idea of what it would be. And then I started thinking, well, what if two kids have to find the scariest book? What if they, and it led me to the title. One day I was walking my dog in Riverside Park in my neighborhood in New York, and these words popped into my head: say cheese and die. Where did that come from? I don't know. I know, there it was. And I'm thinking, oh, good title, good title. What could it be? Maybe there's an evil camera. Maybe kids find the camera. Maybe, and so that's my trick for getting ideas and for getting started, is to don't try to just think of a good title and then work from there. It works very well for me. That's probably backwards from every other author, right? They all get a good idea and they start to write and then they think of a title. But I have to work with the title first. What are any tips for writing for kids as an amateur first-time author? I never give advice. I think if someone really wants to write and they want to be a writer, they're going to be like me. And they don't need to be told, read something, read all the time, write every day. They don't need that. I started writing when I was 9. Can you imagine? I was this weird kid typing in my room at this typewriter. I'm there typing all afternoon. My parents didn't understand it at all. My mother would stand outside my door and she'd say, "What's wrong with you? Stop typing. Go outside and play. Go outside. What's wrong with you?" And I'd say, "It's boring out there." Type, 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 type. That was probably the worst advice I ever got, right? Stop typing, she's telling me. Very bad advice. But so my only advice is, don't listen to people who tell you that writing is hard. I hate it when authors come into school or they come speak at a library and they say, writing is hard. Writing is such hard work. I'm on a lot of writing panels, and every time some author will say, "Oh, writing is so hard. I have to lock my kids in the garage so I have time to write." Writing isn't hard. It's not hard. It's, you don't need special shoes. You don't need there's no heavy lifting, right? No, writing is fun. And if you start out thinking, oh, writing is fun, then it'll be fun for you. If you start out thinking it's hard, writing will be hard. I also hate these authors who come into school and say, I shouldn't be saying this. These authors who come into school and they say, write what you know, write from your heart, write from your heart. Those kids will never write another word. I've written over 300 books, not one word from my heart. That's the What a weird thing to get applause for. This is definitely a strange crowd. Okay, those are tips. Here, next question. Are you satisfied with the 2 Goosebumps movie and Jack Black's portrayal of you? Jack and I are like twins, right? People get us mixed up all the time. I just heard from Jack last week, actually. He's on the picket line. Everyone's on strike. I thought he was too mean. I'm not that mean. I thought he was mean in the movie, but I loved it. I loved it. And he and I had a great time together. A lot of people said they were trying to figure out who should play me in the Goosebumps movie. And a bunch of names came up. And I asked my son, Matt, I said, Matt, who do you think should play me in the movie? And he said, Morgan Freeman. Which is not very helpful. And then a lot of people said that I should play myself. Said, you know, who knows you better than you? You should play yourself. And I went to my wife. This is a devastating line. I went to my wife, Jane, and I said, Jane, you know, a lot of people think I should play myself in the Goosebumps movie. And she said, you're too old to play yourself. Which is totally true, right? Totally true. Anyway, Jack was great. I'm very proud of those two movies. I have more movies. I have a new movie that came out a week ago called Zombie Town with Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase, and it's playing in movie theaters some places. I will tell you, it's filled with zombies. The film has maybe the worst zombies ever in a movie. I don't think they could afford much makeup, so they all have like a little eyeliner, you know, these zombies staggering around. Terrible zombies in the movie. And I have a little cameo at the end. I did a cameo with Dan Aykroyd at the end of the film, and I look more like a zombie. I look like a zombie. That's no joke. No joke. Do you have a pet? What's his name? I have a dog named Lucky. He's some kind of doodle. Now, dogs are just doodles now. You don't see any real dogs. No, he's lucky because he's the wrong dog. They sent us the wrong dog. I ordered a dog from this place called puppyplace.com. And, it was during COVID. Everyone got a dog, right? And they brought this van, came around with all these dogs and carrying case, and we brought it up to the apartment. It's the wrong dog. It wasn't the dog we ordered, but he was too cute to send back. And so he's lucky. Why am I telling you this? What am I doing? I'm supposed to be a scary guy, right? I'm up here talking about Lucky. What is your favorite book that you haven't written by another author? Well, here's a book I always recommend to kids, a really scary book that's beautifully written by an author who is very influential on me, Ray Bradbury. And the book is called Something Wicked This Way Comes. It's a very creepy, beautifully written book that I always recommend to everybody. It's about a boy in the Midwest, like I was, who sneaks out of his house late at night and goes to a couple blocks away where they're setting up a carnival. And he gets involved, and it turns out to be the most evil carnival ever. It's a wonderful book. I couldn't recommend it more. Question, lifelong fan, when is Monster Blood 5 coming out? I get when you write it. I don't have any plans in that area. I have 4 Monster Blood books is a lot, right? I don't see any slappies here today. Are there, what? Oh, slappy on your shirt. Yeah, there's always slappies. I gave a talk at Halloween time in Toronto a couple years ago in a big theater, and 40 people came dressed as Slappy. And I thought, I'm in the wrong business. I should have been in the red bow tie business. I brought him up on stage. It was great, 40 Slappies. People always ask me who's my favorite character from Goosebumps. And I have Slappy as my favorite and my least favorite. He's my favorite because everyone likes him so much, and kids go out and slappy at Halloween time, and he's so popular. And he's my least favorite because I had to write 15 books about him. You try writing 15 books about a dummy that comes to life. I think he's also in the new Goosebumps TV show. You know about the new Goosebumps show? It's starting Friday the 13th. Yes, right. But I'll tell you one weird thing though. It's not for kids. It's for teenagers. Anyway, I saw the first one. It was terrific. I think we've done it. I really enjoyed talking with you today. This has been so much fun. I hope you enjoyed it too. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, come on. Come on. Come on. You're too nice. Sorry. You're too nice. Too nice. Thank you very much.